Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Menachem Creditor. I serve as scholar in residence for UJ Federation of New York, and it is our honor to come to you every weekday morning, Monday through Friday at 9 o'clock in the morning, with a little bit of Torah, a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of learning, a little bit of music, and for community. It has been really gratifying to see how many of us come together at 9 o'clock each morning, how we begin to have a language of familiarity with each other, how the sweetness of this gathering begins to really sink in, and how we begin to look for each other each morning. That's something really precious in life, and I can't say how grateful I am for it. So good morning, everybody. It's good to be together. It's Tuesday morning. There's a lot going on. So let's take a deep breath together. Let's start with a blessing for learning. It ends with the Hebrew words la'asok b'divrei Torah, to be busy with words of Torah. And for some reason I'm not seeing the comments on the screen, and so don't let my lack of response be any disincentive. Continue wishing each other a good day, posting your feelings, being upfront about all of those feelings, and hopefully sharing the gratitude of what this moment means, what it is to convene, to feel the space that can be two-dimensional become much more than that. So, let's start a blessing together. Here we go. La'asok b'divrei Torah, la'asok b'divrei Torah, hafok ba le'hafok ba, la'asok b'divrei Torah. Didiya la 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 la, didiya la la la, didiya la 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 la, ayah. So, hi everyone. It is good to be together. Yesterday we shared some deep stuff, and today we'll share some deep stuff again in the context of this week's Torah portion. And also, just to say one more time, for some reason I can't see the comments that you might be sharing. I have a feeling that there are some, and I can't see any of the emojis or emoticons that you're clicking. So suffice it to say, I know you're there. This is one of those statements of faith. I know you're there. And I'm very grateful you are. This is a trying time in America. It's a trying time in the world, and that was true 2 weeks ago, certainly. It has become even more true with the death of George Floyd, who is not alone as a black man, the victim of horrible racial hatred and violence. The riots that have been taking place all around the United States are a reason for great distress and concern. I think it behooves all leaders to come from a place of empathy and solidarity, not reaction. Obviously, there's no excuse for violence and looting. The destruction of property is not as violent as the destruction of life, but it is violence nonetheless, and violence is unacceptable. Non-violent protest is the point. And there is so much complicated energy around that right now, because in protesting together, are we being mindful of the distance we need to take to protect each other? It is so complicated to consider all of these things. But I wanted to share from this week's Parsha something that can be useful. maybe even healing eventually if we listen well. And so I ask you to open your heart and really listen to this specific part of Parshat Naso, the second Torah reading in the book of Numbers. Parshat Naso has a series of sacrifices that it says you must offer if you make a mistake. And so there are different categories. If an individual makes a mistake, this is what they must do in terms of animal sacrifice in the ancient world to make up for it. If a community makes a mistake, this is what they must do. But when it comes to the moment where the leader is acknowledged and brought into the question, what happens when a leader makes mistakes? Well, the leader will make mistakes, says the Torah. So instead of saying if the leader makes a mistake, it says when the leader makes a mistake. In that context, I want to share just another piece from this week's Parsha. There is a very, very complicated part of the Torah that addresses a woman who's accused of adultery. There is no part of the Torah where a man is accused of adultery, and so there are problems when it comes to biblical text that we will probably never solve for the biblical text, but we will solve for modern egalitarian society. Suffice it to say that rabbinic tradition has many imaginative responses to a lot of these parts of the Torah. When the woman is accused, she goes through a test in order to see whether or not the accusation is real, whether or not it's accurate. And one of the strange parts, and there are many, the high priest takes a scroll and writes God's name on the scroll, and then dissolves it in water. There's more to it, but I'll just leave it there for now. That is strange for a million reasons, including how is that proof of guilt or innocence? But in the ancient world, in the Torah, this was used as a test, or at least theoretically it was. And if you know about Jewish tradition, when God's name is written on something, it is no longer disposable. You can't just dissolve it. You don't throw it away. You don't tear it. It's called shemot. It has God's name on it, and we are called to treat that scroll or that piece of paper with incredible reverence. You bury it. That's what we do. We hold things in a geniza, in a hidden place, until we bury it, affording it real respect because it's become something more than paper. So the rabbis look at this instruction of the Torah and they say, wait, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to treat God's name in such a way. And then they say something gorgeous that I hope that we will listen to very well right now. So I'm opening my heart to this Torah. I hope you will too. God is so concerned with restoring trust between people that God is willing to reduce God's own respect, God's own kavod, in order to achieve it. Even though that's not how God's name, God's book, a Bible, should be treated. If it is for the purpose of bringing people together, even God is willing. A leader should be willing to shrink himself or herself in order to bring us back together, not puff themselves up. The Torah presumes that leaders will make mistakes, and the Torah's guidance for those leaders is that they're supposed to sacrifice, do something we call tzimtzum, contract just a little bit to make space for people, to show models of humility so that we can listen better to each other, so that when we protest, we can be safe and respectful and actually hear what's being said. It is important for me in this moment to recognize that although in history Jews have not been seen as quite white in racial theory, in America, I know that I'm not black, and I have black Jewish brothers and sisters and black not Jewish brothers and sisters. They are the ones who understand this moment much more clearly than I can. But I will stand a little bit smaller as soon as I can, listening well, learning. And one of the things I've started doing to make this a little bit more real in my hyper-local environment is by looking at my bookshelves. And I have a lot of books, but I'm looking at the authors that I turn to for wisdom and guidance and asking myself pretty intentionally, how many of those authors are black? How many of those authors are women? How many of those authors are gay? How many of those authors are Jewish and not? Am I willing to think about Torah in a most expansive of ways and think about all the learning I need to do in order to be fully human in this world? In that spirit, I wanted to quote a major teacher in our traditions. His name was James Baldwin, very famous black thinker. This is a quote from him. "This is the charged, the dangerous moment, when everything must be re-examined, must be made new, when nothing at all can be taken for granted." Nothing can be taken for granted. The Torah tells us that, and so does James Baldwin. So I wanted to bless us with a pause today. We might be in something called the Great Pause, but let's pause intentionally. Think about the places we turn for guidance, the images we think of as Torah, and what we as leaders, because you are one whether you realize it or not. Leadership is the ability to affect someone else, so you've got it. No one doesn't. So as a leader, what will you do to bring trust between people again? What will you do to make this world a little bit safer so that black parents can trust their children to the streets? What will we do? How will you show up? Who will you learn from? Who will you quote? Who will you just be quiet and listen to? So, friends, I wish us a really thoughtful day. A really intentional, thoughtful day. I am so grateful that we come together. I really, really look forward to this moment of my day more than I could express. So thank you for being present. And by present, I mean present. Let's sing our way into the day. Boker Tov, everyone. Have a very good day. See you tomorrow at 9.